been trying to record this story for a while, and I keep forgetting to say things or whatever. So let's try it again. And I'm not doing the video editing thing so much right now. I just don't have time. Like, I want to make content because this stuff's important, you know, for reaching other people and for my own ability to think out loud. Anyway, so my husband and I were going to Knoxville, Tennessee last week to go to the Gun Owners of America conference, and we were on our way there. We were driving in a rental car. We were going through Illinois, so we had actually just stopped in Mount Vernon, Illinois to get some gas. I'll talk about that later. And on our way, we were listening to a podcast or something, and then all of a sudden, he was driving, and all of a sudden he's like, whoa, someone almost rear-ended us. And of course that got my attention, so I'm looking in the mirrors and trying to figure out what's going on. And there was a car behind us that was, it was like they were trying to pass us, or they were trying to rear-end us, or they were just road raging. And it was probably some of the craziest driving I've ever seen. Like, going all the way over to the right, trying to like get right up on our tail, and then backing off real far, and then flooring it and getting back up on our tail again, and going over to the left and just darting around. And they couldn't go anywhere. It's a 1-lane construction zone, and there was no way to pass us. There was a semi behind them, and I don't know what was in front of us, another car or semi or something. And So we're driving and watching this guy. So I pretty much immediately call 911 because I've experienced a similar incident before, and it took me way too long to call 911. I should have called 911 much sooner. Well, this time I had mentally prepared, so I called 911 immediately, and I was on the phone with the dispatch. We had them on speakerphone, and so we were both talking to them, giving descriptions and things like that, trying to get their plates and trying to give, just their description. And at some point, I don't remember when or what point during the phone call, but my husband said he's waving a gun around. And I don't remember in that moment if I actually got like a visual demonstration from my husband, like, because he definitely told me after the fact that he was waving it like this, and just like up and down, just like waving it. And I know that I heard him tell me that after the fact. I don't know if he brought that up in the moment or not, or if he just said he's waving a gun. In any case, I got more anxious at that moment, and the dispatch, I recall her, it was actually a guy, I think. Jeez, that's crazy. He said, okay, just calm down, the famous last words. Luckily, I was able to collect myself. Him telling me that actually worked. I was like, okay, I am probably my voice was a little frantic, and I wasn't able to get my points across very clearly. So I did. I took a deep breath, and I calmed down a little bit so I can articulate what was going on better. And basically just kept him on the phone, telling him what was going on, and they were trying to get troopers to us. Well, being on this part of the highway where there's this construction, there was no... It felt like we were there forever, but I felt like we were just passing exit after exit. I don't believe that to be true. I'll talk about the time distortion here in a minute, but it felt like we were on the road for miles and miles, and like it was forever before they were able to get to us. So we had a pretty staunch realization that we're alone, and our safety is our responsibility right now, and help isn't very close to us. So it was kind of interesting feeling. So we're driving, and eventually we get to a point where the highway actually goes to two different directions, and we see a state trooper to our right, and then 2 or 3 other ones to our left waiting for us. And so as soon as we passed them, they pulled them over, and they told us we were still on the phone with dispatch, but they told us to go to the gas station and a couple exits down and just wait for them to get there so they can get a statement from us. And so the cop showed up later. We were at the rest stop, and he was, getting our statement and everything, and I had to ask him, I was like, so can I just get confirmation, was there a gun involved? Because I didn't see it. My husband saw it. And it's not like I didn't trust him, but it was, you don't really know what you're seeing in times like that. It could have been a phone. It could have been his coffee cup. I don't know. It could have been a number of things. But I just wanted to get confirmation for my own sanity. And sure enough, yeah, he did have a gun. And so definitely quite interesting of a feeling to realize that. So let's talk about a couple things. First off, one part that I forgot to mention was while this guy was rushing up on our tail and backing off and driving erratically, and we were watching him and everything, I had my gun in my hand, and it wasn't out of its holster. It was still in its holster, so I wouldn't necessarily say that I had drawn it to a low ready or anything. Like I wasn't that ready to use it, but I wanted to have it in my hand. Now, when it was in my hand, I had my thumb on the edge of the holster so I could quickly break the retention. So it's in a holster that's clamped down on it pretty good, and the retention's pretty strong. So I was ready to break the retention if I needed it. And then I started visualizing all these things, like, so there's a really loud truck next to me. What if he comes up on the right, and, how would I defend us then? And what if he came up on the left, and how would I, the gun being in front of my husband's face? Like, I could see all that, and it was kind of surreal. But then I started, like, thinking about what's beyond my target, what's beyond my threat. Like, over here on the passenger side, there was just trees and everything, so wasn't an issue there. But if you were to get up over here on the driver's side, for one, my husband would be more in danger because I'd be, basically shooting in front of his face if I did shoot the gun. And then there was also traffic going the opposite direction on the other side of the highway, of which I was not willing to have collateral damage like that. And then obviously I continued to go down the path of how to navigate this problem, this situation, and realized that the gun was not a great option at all. Like, it doesn't matter if he was up here right next to us on my side or his side, it doesn't really matter. Shooting through windows, shooting through glass, especially car glass that's meant to, this stuff is pretty thick, and it changes the trajectory of your bullet like you wouldn't believe. And not to mention it would be going through 2 panes of glass, and I'm accountable for every bullet. So if I were to shoot through my window, his window, whatever, that path could change, and I might not hit what I was expecting to. Not to mention the sheer fact that I'm in a moving vehicle, shooting at a moving vehicle, and who knows what else is in that vehicle. He could have a kid in the back seat, or another passenger in the back seat, or there's all kinds of reasons why shooting at or from a moving vehicle is a very, very bad idea. There are very, very few situations that I can envision where that would make sense. Definitely a topic for another video. So my gun, it was not on me. And that is the biggest learning moment I took away from this, is that I didn't have my gun on me, and I made that choice in the moment. It's always a choice for me when I put my gun on or I choose not to put it on. It is a part of my everyday carry. Therefore, I make the decision every single day on whether or not I'm going to wear my gun. And when I don't wear my gun, I'm not saying I wear my gun all the time. There's definitely times where I can't, or I just don't want to. It's rare, but they do happen. And that was one of those times I had made the decision that I'm driving, I'm riding as a passenger down mostly highway for 7 hours, and we're not stopping at stoplights. The thought of carjacking was really the only thing that had occurred to me, or and that's just my own naive, not mentally preparing for all kinds of encounters. It's one of those, you don't know what you don't know. Like, I know that road rage and people waving guns on the highway is all a thing. I've heard those stories many a times, but I've never visualized an encounter like that. And if you can't visualize it, you can't mentally prepare for it ahead of time. If that ever happens, it's harder to think through the problem. And anyway, so I didn't have my gun on me. We had stopped in Illinois, and that's when I'd taken it off because I had to get out of the car to go inside. We could have filled up gas in Missouri, and why the heck didn't we? Like, it was probably cheaper and safer, and I could keep my gun on. And truthfully, I'm trying to look back and think of a good reason why we stopped in Illinois, and I really can't. I feel like we're usually more strategic than that, but truthfully, we don't travel very often, so it just wasn't a thought, I guess. I don't know, but we stopped in Illinois to get gas. I took off my gun to go inside, and I did not put it back on. I left it in its holster. I use a Filster Enigma, which is a little complicated to put on and take on and off, especially if you're seated in a car. That's definitely no excuse, though. I made the decision not to put my gun on because I wanted to be more comfortable, and I didn't want to have to deal with the complexities of putting the gun on in that moment. So I left it in the center console. Now, what happened, like, if we visualize the what if from that, and let's say it got worse, let's say that he did hit us and sends us spiraling off the road, or, we get into an accident, and or even him just hitting the car, it jostles the car, and my gun either falls out of my hand, or it, even while it's in its holster or whatever, it gets moved around the car, and I don't have connection with it anymore. And then we get into an accident. He was road raging the whole time, and then here he comes after he causes an accident. He comes walking up to our vehicle looking to be violent with us. Like, then what do I do? Like, where's my gun? And I don't have a means to protect myself. So losing control of my gun in different, like, the situation that we were in that exact moment didn't cause any issues, but it could have. And so a huge learning moment for me, the sacrifice I made to not wear my gun for comfort and convenience, I learned from it. So the next part of that is the realization that we had met the imminent threat, the AOJ triangle, the ability, opportunity, jeopardy. The person in the vehicle has the ability to hurt me, to hurt us. He has the ability. He's a full-grown adult, and he had a tool in his hand capable of causing grave bodily harm, death. And then he also had the opportunity to use that. He was behind us. He could very easily point it in our direction. He could very easily pull the trigger. There was no real barriers between us. The distance didn't matter because he's shooting a gun. It's a projectile weapon. So he had the opportunity to deploy that amount of force as well. And then the last one is he showed a manifest intent to cause us harm. He was driving erratically. He was waving the gun in our direction, acting very negligently. And so therefore, that is an indication that the imminent threat has been established. You don't have to wait for him to start shooting in order for you to defend yourself. And that's what the imminent threat defines. You can objectively means that there's real details in the real world that other people would see, hear, smell, or whatever in that moment, just like you did. It's in that moment, not hindsight's 20/20, and it has to be objective that other people would see or feel too. So we had met that imminent threat threshold, and that was a realization that was very interesting. I teach people about it all the time in CCW and things, and then to experience it, it's surreal, and it's humbling and enlightening. And then the last part was my husband said that he, this was after the fact, that he believes that the guy might have been like singing a song or something and just being definitely negligent with the gun, but maybe he was just singing a song and he wasn't threatening us with it necessarily. Now, the reasonable person in us, we are still reasonable in being in fear of our lives because he was being negligent with that projectile tool, and all of those things still existed in the imminence domain. But the intent, let's say that we did use a force option and we were in court over this, and the prosecutor found out that my husband thought that he was just singing a song or something. Do you think that he's going to be destroyed on the stand by the prosecutor? Absolutely. Even though our lives were still in danger and that imminent threat still existed, and it would still be a justified use of force in my opinion, the jury and the prosecutor and everybody are going to try to, the prosecutor's going to manipulate that to try to make you look like a bad guy that had bad intentions, of course. And then the jury, well, hopefully they don't feed into that. But it's just one more thing to go towards the reasonable person. That's why the reasonable person exists. For one, to protect us in times like these where you don't have to know whether or not he wants to hurt you or not. He's capable of hurting you, and he's displaying the intent to hurt you, and he's met all that imminent threshold. You don't have to wait for bullets to be piercing your glass. But the other side of that is, just the reasonableness is like your jury could have people on it that felt they would have been reasonable in not using force. And so that's what you're judged against, is the reasonable person and how they would have perceived you if they were in that exact moment at that exact time. So just a couple things from that. One last thing, I think I said that already, but one last thing was the time aspect. I immediately had texted my boss after the whole thing happened to let him know what was going on, and I told him that it was like 10 minutes that we were on the highway, because we called 911 pretty quick. And I told him, it's like, oh, it was 10 minutes. We were on the highway. I was on the phone with dispatch, and I looked at the 911 call later, and it was not even 2 minutes long. 2 minutes for us to be driving down the highway, being on the phone the whole time, and like, it's insane. It, like the time distortion was so real. It's weird. It's crazy. It doesn't like slow down time in the moment. It's not like the movies where you're like get to like watch bullets cross your path or anything. I didn't really get tunnel vision that I know of either, but the time distortion was totally there. It's just weird to look back. It's like you had the best day ever at Six Flags, and you look down at your watch thinking it's just lunchtime, and it's like your whole day's gone because you've just been having a blast, and the time is gone. I'm not saying I was having a blast by any means, but maybe it's the excitement, the adrenaline, whatever, that distorts the time, and it makes it feel like it's so much longer. So anyway, if I would have used force, whether it be my car or, again, my gun, which would not have been a great option, I would not have given a statement in that moment. I would have waited for an attorney to help me through that process, to help me understand what, all of those things, and to make sure that my statement was accurate and complete. And I'm not saying things to imply something else, or when you're talking about the times, like, oh yeah, it was 10 minutes long. Those are the things that the attorneys get to help you with. They're like, well, do you really think it was 10 minutes, or should we look at the 911 call and realize it's only 2 minutes? Well, you shouldn't say that it was 10 minutes, because now they're going to look at you like a liar. So it's all manipulation stuff, but an attorney can help you articulate your story in the way that you won't be manipulated. They're definitely not there to lie for you or to help you lie, but we want to make sure that we say things objectively, not subjectively, to make sure that the jury and the prosecutor get the real information, not your feelings and your emotions in the moment. So that's about all I got. So you all have a great day, and we'll talk soon.